No, and see, on this note, I also wanted to ask you, or give you my opinion, maybe you'll disagree with. But the reason these films are so special is also because, and I'm talking purely from a technical aspect, don't you feel that shooting on a film camera, 35 millimeter, 60 millimeter, it makes a difference? Now, right now, it's all digital. Right now,
Mhm.
it's all color correction. You sit in a computer, you tap the buttons and the color changes. And don't you think this has impacted the film industry severely? Because see, everybody's jumped on the digital bandwagon. We are all digital now. All the
Mhm.
films, stocks are gone. They're shutting down, and probably in the near future, only like big. At least it's already happening here in Bollywood in India. That only the big, studios with money make films on film cameras. But do you feel that has, at least to you, like, does it make a difference? Shot on film or digital? Can you make it out? Can you make the difference?
No, I can't because I'm not someone who's technically I don't know the difference. I've never handled film. I couldn't tell you anything about the technical cutting of things versus how that was done in the 60s versus now. That would be the equivalent of me trying to argue that, for example, writing is better or worse now by using a Word or some
Hmm.
computer program rather than an old typewriter. Certainly,
Hmm.
using I can do things like repetition more easily. For example, if I'm writing a play or a novel and I want to have a character remember something that happened 500 pages ago, I can go back and copy and paste and put it in there and tweak it. It's easier than rewriting and rewriting. So certainly when I said like I've written like a 2.5 million word novel, there's a
Hmm.
large part of that is repetition and use of some public domain material where I have characters, for example, doing different things. Giving you an example, I mentioned my science fiction novel. That
Yeah.
500,000 word novel, I actually took a public domain story that Philip K. Dick had written. It was a terrible
Hmm.
story. What I did was I took the essence of it, rewrote
Hmm.
it, and then at the
Hmm.
end of the novel, I compared side by side what I
Hmm.
had written versus what Dick had written to show mine was
Hmm.
better and to show that
Hmm.
a computer in the future did not
Hmm.
recognize that a character who's saying this story was his own was really
Hmm.
plagiarizing Dick. And so it's a
Hmm.
meta way of critiquing the badness of science fiction writing and,
Hmm.
and and Dick's writing in itself. But I could not have done that really in the old. It would have taken so long. It would have been so time consuming. So is
Yeah.
I have the ability because I can copy and paste things that other people don't do. I have the ability because I can go to Project Gutenberg and copy and
Yeah.
paste, say, 3 paragraphs from an 1870s anarchist tract that I can have
Yeah.
a character quote from that would take me weeks to look up in an old-fashioned library. So
Hmm.
yes, my ability to gather information is different,
Hmm.
but it also means I can fail more easily too.
Hmm. 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 I mean, the reason I say is because I love one of this quote from you, and it says over here, I took it down, that today the films are catered towards kids who are, there's no difference between video games, VR, and the movies. And
Hmm.
I think in the future, hopefully, we'll get adult dramas aimed at 30 plus or 50 plus crowd, senior citizens.
Yeah.
And it's a gold mine waiting to happen, which is absolutely spot on. But that's my point. Don't you think that today's films look too glossy? They look like a video game, like too, you know?
I think video games certainly have influenced it. Uh, Again, though, there's going to be someone who will take that gloss that you talk about and can do it well. It's the fact that the video game gloss is not used well. It's not used in a
Mm,
purposeful fashion. I just mentioned how I took literally I
mm,
copied and pasted a 7 or 8 thousand word short story of Philip K. Dick into
mm,
my novel. And it wasn't because
mm,
what I was trying to do was show that here is bad writing, but it can be
mm,
used for a greater purpose to show the limits of that bad writing. There is someone
mm,
who's smart enough that can take that gloss, that superficiality of the video game glow, and do something
mm,
great with it. I don't have that
mm,
ability. I'm not a filmmaker. Maybe you have it. Maybe someone that you know has that
mm,
ability. But just because something has a flaw doesn't mean that that flaw is imminent to it. Doesn't mean that, for example, I mentioned how there are great films I don't like. There's a film called Persona by Ingmar Bergman
yeah.
that is a perfect example. Ber- uh, Persona is about this woman who's having, or two women who may be. Some people think it's one. I don't, but
mm,
who are sort of twinned together and having personal issues, a nurse and her patient, and
mm,
it's so in a sense pretentious that I get turned
mm,
off intellectually. On the other hand, Ingmar Bergman does it so superbly. It's such a great
yeah,
film. Ingmar Bergman
mm,
is literally, he unzips, pulls out his penis, and says, "Here, I'm Ingmar Bergman. You top this, motherfucker." And he's
yeah,
Ingmar Bergman. He can get away with that because he is so proficient. He is so great a filmmaker at that point in the late 60s. He could just, he could just have 30 minutes of him masturbating and he'd do something
yeah,
great with it. He was working at such a high level there. And
yeah,
that's one of the things that uh, when you have someone who can do something and make it so new and so vital, he can take what would otherwise be just pretension, and it's a pretentious film, but it's a great pretentious film, and that's the difference.
yeah,
The greatness easily overrides the pretension. Because of the pretension, I don't like it, but I'd be an
yeah,
idiot to say it's not a great film.
yeah, yeah.